Rudolf Steiner was a great teacher to humankind, and an archetype like him probably maybe comes around every 500 years, maybe every 1,000 years. And Rudolf Steiner had this phrase that he would bring around that we're basically a plant that walks upside down. So this is the root ball, which is the earth itself, just to point that out. Okay, so getting your brains back means eating things that are in the earth, like roots, like that's what's in your brain. This neck area is where the trunk comes out of the ground. That's where the plant comes out of the ground. And that's actually where in the natural world the electrical charge is localized. So the negatively charged field that's on the earth is right there at the surface of the earth, right where the plant pops out of the ground. So in us it would make sense that that's our neck, as Steiner said, because the neck is actually the trunk. Imagine me upside down. Then these are the branches and all the twigs and stuff. You can guess where the flowers and fruits are. Does anybody need any help on that one? Okay. Anyway, that idea is very interesting because it gives us a little bit of knowledge about what we should be eating for different things. Like bee pollen or the pollen of a flower. What do you think that's good for? Reproductive organs. Roots, the head, right here. And those things that come out of the ground, right here. And those are things like stems, celery. And celery juice is a really important neutralizer of toxins, and it's very gentle. It's extremely gentle, and that's why I like celery so much. And that's why Jensen, over his 65 years of research, arrived at celery juice. That's why Dr. Walker, over his lifetime, it's all about celery juice. If you go to the juice man's house, and I've been over there many times, he doesn't drink carrot juice. He drinks celery juice. And if you've been doing raw foods for a long time, you know that story too. Are you still doing carrot juice? 13 carrot juices a day? No. You're actually doing green juice, celery-based juice. Rudolf Steiner brought a whole group of teachings to the world that are super valuable to us. I mentioned yesterday about the shoe business. If we are blocking that electrical charge that's coming out of the earth that naturally is filling in all our reservoirs, which are our meridian points and eventually fills up our thyroid, then we become susceptible, according to Rudolf Steiner, direct quote, to crystallization. We get crystallized by forces that come out of the cosmos. So whenever a force stands unopposed to the cosmic forces, the radiation that comes out of the heavens, the forces that come out of the stars, and the radiation and the atmospheric gases, whenever that's unopposed, then boom, you'll get turned to stone. And that's exactly what's happening to us. We're getting oxidized, we're getting fried, and eventually what's happening is we're getting... And that's called a heart attack, that's called arthritis, that's called a stroke. And it's also called cancer, because cancer is a calcification disease. That's the hardness of a cancer tumor. The hard is actually bad calcium. In order to reestablish the mixing of the heavens and earth in a correct formula, we actually have to get connected actually to the earth. And interestingly, it has to actually be a skin-to-skin connection. We can't fake it. Like, I can't touch your shirt and say I'm touching you. That's faking it. Because people say to me all the time, they're like, well, what if I just meditate that I'm connected to the earth? Nope. Too esoteric. It's not material enough. And we're very material. We're very material. Steiner's whole thing on materialism I love too. And Steiner said this. Steiner said that materialism is caused by eating potatoes, which causes us to lose our brains. Our brains go wonky. What's a potato? It's basically all sugar and no minerals. And anytime that formula is duplicated, you can see it, it's obvious. It's always recreating problems. Every time you see that formula duplicated, in whatever form it shows up in, there is going to be a breakdown in consciousness. And the potato consciousness is now coming to an end. With the same amount of work, let's say you want to eat something like a cooked root, you just go to sweet potato or yam. 4 times the amount of minerals, and also has subtle progesterone building qualities in women and testosterone building qualities in men. The fastest man in the world, Usain Bolt, what is he? A friend of mine wants to be the fastest man in the world. So he came to me, he's like, what kind of diet do I need to be on? So we get on his whole diet, everything. And then I said, we got to get the fastest man in the world, we got to find out what his diet is. So he's Jamaican, Usain Bolt. Guess what his diet is? Sweet potato. That's what he eats, sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes and roots. Sweet potatoes and roots, like the root elixirs of Jamaica. Those are like herbal concoctions. And then the Scotch bonnet hot peppers. You ever had those? They're the hottest in the world. They're so hot that I was planting seeds of them and my fingers were burning 2 days later just from planting the seeds. That's hot. Anyway, that's maybe what makes lightning fast. Rudolf Steiner also had this...
Is he on a vegetarian diet, or is he?
It appears he's on a vegetarian diet. I don't know. I mean, I don't know his whole diet, but I do know some pieces of it. But his father, when asked what made his son the fastest man in the world, he said he lives on a diet of sweet potatoes. That's what his father said. They're cooked. Anyway, let's jump onto this piece on Rudolf Steiner. Another little very important piece is that, thanks.
Sorry,
We live in a very superficial world. You know, this whole thing of like you need to eat calcium for calcium in your bones because your bones are made out of calcium is so absurdly superficial. And every metaphor of that superficiality is always wrong. Every metaphor of that superficiality is always wrong. Nothing is ever obvious and nothing is ever direct. So nature works indirectly. So you would think, like, let's say there's a flood coming, okay? And the flood rolls down the hill. Is that actually what destroys things? No. Nope, it's not the flood. It's the pullback. It's the drawback. It's the tractive force that's behind that pulls. That's what destroys things. It's not the front of the end of the flood coming in that pushes everything down. It's the tractive force behind that pulls everything down. And that's a very good example of the indirectness of nature. Victor Schauberger, when he developed his first dam, every single scientist said it's going to fail, there's no way it's going to work, because every scientist believed that as a flood comes down and they open the sluice gates up to fill the reservoir, that the thing was going to come down and blow the thing open. But in fact, that didn't happen because he designed that dam to control the recursive or indirect force, not the direct force. He designed that dam so that he knew that the direct force is not very powerful. Same with when you go to a beach. When a wave breaks and the water washes up, that's not what breaks everything down. What breaks everything down is the retractive force that pulls everything back into the ocean. That's where you hear all the stones go, and that's what breaks the rock down. It's a retractive force, it's a reflective force, or it's indirect. Victor Schauberger, in his theories, took that all the way out to the extreme of every theory about science. That's always the indirect force. So levity is a force that's an indirect force. That's why levity has to hide out inside of trees. It has to hide out inside a substance and stay away from the atmosphere. So a tree doesn't grow or force itself up against gravity. It actually falls upwards. It actually displaces gravity indirectly by removing light, heat, and oxygen, which interestingly are gravity. You never heard that before. You know why you never heard that before? Because since 1958, all information on that subject is classified information by the British government and the US government. Any theory that says that gravity is actually forcing it to be displaced is actually classified information. So the Einstein theory that we were taught, which Steiner thought was wrong, Schauberger thought was wrong, is totally wrong. Which is that gravity is intrinsic to matter. If gravity is intrinsic to matter, you'd all be squashed completely flat and there would be no growth. There could be no independent movement. What did Rudolf Steiner say about aging? Rudolf Steiner said, we don't age. What actually happens to us is that we gradually become seized by substances in our body that are seized by the forces of gravity. Why did he say that? What is he talking about? Well, implied in there is a force of levity. That means that I walk around, I move around, I go, just jump around. I don't sense my own weight. But I can tell you that if I started accreting stones in my body called calcification, called tendinitis, called arthritis, called cardiovascular disease, that suddenly I do start sensing my own weight. And I don't have that freedom of movement anymore. Substances in our body that are seized by the forces of gravity. Well water is notoriously problematic for that very reason. The well water is in the earth. As soon as you bring it out of the earth, it wants to be seized and forced by the force of gravity back down there. And it has been known in this nation, I actually read before this trip, I brought up on PDF files online, I downloaded a bunch of books that had been researched about water on the British Isles. And it had been found out that over the years, the chalky water in the southeast of this country is not the worst water this country has, it's well water. You bring well water up, and even though it may not have a very high amount of calcium in the water, it causes calcification. Because it oxidizes, or something happens, or it contains organisms that form shells that cause arthritis, that will lead to cardiovascular disease. And that has actually been shown.
So can I just ask, out of your clarity, will that clear anything in the well water? Like, is that powerful?
Well, Agia clarity is a very powerful mica extract that comes from Japan that if I was living on well water,